I will share my screen now. And so today, Hanae and I will be presenting on being a sibling of a youth with a neurodisability, a qualitative study about the roles and responsibilities during the transition to adulthood. During emerging adulthood, which is defined as the period of ages 18 to 25 years old, youth will have to learn how to navigate new environments. And often, according to the literature, youth with disabilities have reported challenges during this period. And these challenges include attending post-secondary education, securing employment, developing long-term relationships, and accessing adult care services. One of the critical transitions that youth with disabilities will experience is the transition from pediatric to adult healthcare, which is defined as the purposeful planned movement of adolescents with chronic physical and medical conditions from child-centered to adult-oriented healthcare systems. Youth and families have often described the challenges with this transition process, in which they have said they will have to leave the pediatric system that they have known all their lives, and they have entered into the adult healthcare system that can be unfamiliar to them. But with the supports that they need, it can be a process that will be successful for our youth with disabilities, in which if it is successful, they can access the services that they require. And so it's so important to think about the supports that youth with disabilities will require during healthcare transition. Youth can turn to their family, including their siblings, for support during the transition to adulthood and healthcare transition. Siblings can provide support in both formal and informal roles to their sibling with a disability. Some of these roles may include being a friend or a mentor or supporter to their sibling with disability, but other more formal roles can include being a caregiver that they choose to be to their sibling with disability. In 2017, a needs assessment survey was conducted with 260 responses completed from siblings of individuals with intellectual disabilities in Ontario, Canada. And this survey helps to understand the perspectives of siblings. In this survey, siblings prioritized that they wanted tools, resources, and information to support their sibling with a disability, and they wanted more information on different topics, which range from finances, funding, to mental health supports for the whole family. And so continuing along with understanding the perspectives of siblings, it is so important to partner with those with lived experiences. And so here I am also co-presenting with Hanae Davis, a member of the Sibling Youth Advisory Council. I'll pass it to Hanae to describe our group here.
Hi, everyone. So as Linda mentioned, the Sibling Youth Advisory Council was formed in 2018 as a research partner to Linda's dissertation at the time. And currently it is comprised of 2 brothers and 6 sisters. And the partnerships span from Alberta to Ontario, Canada for now. And we have siblings with who have their own siblings with different disabilities, including autism spectrum disorder, cerebral palsy, CDKL5, and multiple sclerosis. Maybe we can go to the next slide. Thank you. And Linda wanted to give me an opportunity here to expand a little bit on why I partnered with the SIBYAC. I started my partnership with Linda and the group back in 2019. So it's been quite a few years now. And for my why, I think at the time I was finishing my own doctorate in a different topic, and I was exploring opportunities for my own postdoctoral fellowship. And through that search, I met William Gorder, who was Linda's PhD advisor at the time. And I was speaking about how I'd like to bring in my own personal experiences with disabilities for my own postdoctoral topic. But in parallel, he said, you've got to connect with Linda because her whole dissertation is on siblings. So Linda and I met for coffee and we talked for way too long, but also not enough. And I think that was the first time that I felt like this was a true equitable partnership that I hadn't experienced before. I partnered with other hospitals in the past, but I was very much in the minority as a sibling partner because everyone else who was sort of a family leader or a partner in research, they were all parents. So the way the partnership system was set up in those systems was very much geared toward parent partners rather than sibling partners. And this was my first experience partnering as a sibling, and all the other partners on the team were also siblings. So it was a wonderful start to a great partnership, and I'm still here today, and I'm looking forward to sharing the work that we've done so far.
Thank you so much, Hanae, for sharing your why and your motivations for continuing our partnership. I still remember our initial meeting where we had that coffee chat. And like you said, it was way too long, but for me, it was so inspiring to hear about your stories, your personal stories and experiences about growing up as a sibling and how that really affected you throughout your trajectory and growing up and the roles that you had that changed over time to your sibling, your other siblings, and your sibling with a disability. And so that really leads and into the work that we did together. Our whole work together has really become a program of research. And so to date, we've conducted the following studies, and we're also happy to put in a chat later on a document of all of these studies that have now been published. Our work included conducting a review and qualitative document analysis of online resources to see what were available to support siblings on websites from children's hospitals, treatment centers, and rehabilitation centers. We also conducted a scoping review of sibling programs to see what has been available in the published literature, as well as a qualitative study, which is the best sib study, to understand the roles and responsibilities of siblings and to understand how siblings come to construct their identity based on their experiences with their sibling with disability and their family. And today we'll be focusing on the paper for this journal club on understanding the roles and responsibilities of siblings. And so this study aims to deepen our understanding of sibling roles, including any functions associated with healthcare transitions, and identify the siblings' responsibilities in the relationship with their sibling with a neurodisability. The study was designed as a descriptive single case study. And so this means that the single case will be the experiences of siblings that we wanted to describe. And so our inclusion criteria were participants were eligible to participate if they were between 14 to 40 years old. And while we recognize that the end range of 40 years old is quite a wide age range, we asked the older siblings to reflect on their experiences growing up, especially during adolescence and young adulthood. We also asked for the participants to have a sibling between 14 to 21 years old with a childhood onset neurodisability and spoke English. We conducted semi-structured one-on-one interviews, and we also used arts-based techniques, including photo elicitation, where we asked all the sibling participants to bring in 3 to 5 photographs that describe their experiences growing up with their sibling with a disability, as well as we asked them during the interviews to draw a family tree diagram that reflected who in their immediate family they would go to for support. We analyzed the data using reflexive thematic analysis to identify the key themes or messages that were being shared by siblings. We also worked together along with Hanae and other members of the Sibling Youth Advisory Council to review the summary of participant quotes. And I shared a short coding tutorial that I created with all the SIBYAC members about what it means to code qualitative data. And I'm happy to share that coding tutorial as well if anyone would like that. We also had a discussion among the SIBYAC that was facilitated by a qualitative and mixed methods research expert, where during this meeting, we discussed the summary of the participant quotes. So discussing about whether the experiences among siblings were similar or different from the experiences being shared by sibling participants. We consulted with a multidisciplinary team to review the summary. So this team included people from all different backgrounds, which included physiatry as well as nursing, ranging from trainees all the way to senior researchers to have this wide perspectives of the information presented in this summary. And afterwards, we consolidated the feedback and the comments from everyone to refine the categories and themes. So you can tell that this whole process was really a collaborative process in partnership with the SIBYAC. And so now I'll pass it to Hanae to present the results of our study.
Thank you. So in the end, our sample was 19 sibling participants. You'll see the mean age there. And this in turn resulted in discussing 20 unique siblings with a neurodisability, also mean age you'll see there as well. 14 participants described their relationship to one sibling with a neurodisability, and 5 described their relationship with 2 siblings with a neurodisability in their families. So the results are presented in this figure, and we'll present it in increments to walk everyone through. So the type of sibling role differed across the life course trajectory, and the degree of emotional responsibility invested by the sibling in their roles varied as well. Different levels of emotional responsibility were associated with each role, and they were categorized as low, medium, and high. Sibling participants described how they learned to control these emotions in order to best assume their role to their siblings with a neurodisability. And so the first role here is as a friend, and I think we're going to have a quotation pop up as well. So during a sibling's life course, one of the first roles assumed was that of a friend. Siblings described playing with their sibling with a neurodisability as having a low level of emotional responsibility. They could simply play with their sibling with a neurodisability as they would with other siblings or peers. And the next one is the role model and mentor role. During adolescence, sibling participants began to take on the roles of being a model, mentor, protector, advocate, or supporter, which carried a medium level of emotional responsibility. Siblings felt that they had to be present for their sibling with a neurodisability by offering guidance, yet they also wanted to prevent their sibling with a neurodisability from feeling negative emotions. And you'll see that here in this quotation from a participant. And lastly, in the third phase, as siblings entered emerging adulthood, some described that they were either preparing for or had the role of a caregiver. This role had the highest level of emotional responsibility because sibling participants needed to ensure that the basic needs of their sibling with a neurodisability were met, such as assistance with therapy and personal hygiene. And so I think the next slide is a final schematic of how those roles can evolve over time and across the age span of the participants.
Linda, I think you're muted.
Oops, sorry about that. Thanks, Sadia. And thank you, Hanae, for sharing about the different roles that siblings had. And siblings came to be influenced to take on these roles based on their intrapersonal characteristics. And so this could be based on their personal identity, which included their birth order, such as being older or younger to their sibling with a disability, their age. So often siblings may take on more roles as they grew up and also older, and their gender. So often the female sibling participants were the ones who may take on more caregiving responsibilities, whereas male sibling participants were the ones who would take on more of a caring or supportive role to their sibling with a disability. Other aspects were around values. So, for example, some of the siblings shared how family responsibility was really important to their reasoning for why they took on certain roles, as you can see from this quote. And these values were instilled by the family about why it was so important for them to support their sibling with a disability. Siblings also shared their own personal experiences. Some of them disclosed that they also had a disability, so they had experiences with trying out certain medications or therapy, and they want to share these experiences with their sibling with a disability. And siblings reflected on a distinct decision-making process that described how they determined which roles and responsibilities they would assume. The following steps outlines this decision-making process, which includes acquiring knowledge. For some of the siblings, they need to learn what the disability was about, what types of services would their sibling with a disability require, what types of medications, or even who is part of the circle of care team for their sibling with a disability. Siblings also described how they need to start preparing for plans. Even plans, some of these plans could include short-term plans, such as when they were going out with their friends. They needed to be responsible for who would be at home to take care of their sibling with a disability, as well as they were preparing for long-term plans, such as moving away for university or college, or finding employment, and what that might mean for the different roles that family members may take on within the household. Also, this study was conducted during the COVID-19 pandemic, so there were also lockdowns that were taking place, and this can be a challenge for the siblings with disability who needed that kind of routine. And so the sibling participants described how they would explain some of these plans to their sibling with disability, and also coping around the uncertainty and how this can be explained. And also making adjustments. So these adjustments could be when the sibling first received a diagnosis and what changes might occur within the family. Some of the siblings and participants described the adjustments that they were making, such as making sure and checking in that their sibling with disability were taking the medications on time, and also adjustments to the COVID-19 lockdowns, where the sibling with a disability and other siblings may have to adjust to virtual learning and how they need to discuss about the responsibilities within the household when everyone was at home during the lockdowns. And also seeking supports. The sibling participants describe how they need to seek supports in different ways throughout their childhood, adolescence, and young adulthood. When they were younger, they often went to their parents for support by asking questions. As they grew up, they started to identify that they need to seek professional therapy support for their own mental health and well-being. And so these steps outlines the distinct decision-making process that can also be steps that we're taking in an iterative process among siblings as they start to think about the roles and responsibilities that they may take on with their sibling with disability and within their family. And this decision-making process occurs within the context of the family. And so overall, the study describes what siblings were discussing on the types of roles that they chose to have over time. We want to emphasize that these siblings identified that they wanted to take on these roles, but they needed some time to think about what were the factors that might influence their decision to take on these roles. And so we also described, based on the findings from this study, the distinct decision-making process that siblings had for deciding on choosing which roles that they wanted to have within the family. The results also highlight the need to include siblings in conversations about current and future roles, and that these conversations are ongoing and can change over time, as the siblings were also going through their own transition process, such as entering post-secondary education or finding employment. And resources are needed to support siblings to prepare for their future roles. We also discuss how the strengths of the study include the engagement of the SIBIAC to inform all aspects of the study. The SIBIAC were involved with our recruitment materials, such as creating the flyers and the recruitment videos, and emphasizing the need to have the voices of the siblings to be heard. We also consulted with a multidisciplinary team for data analysis. This included not only the SIBIAC, but also other members of our team, which are people who came from different backgrounds, and their perspectives could inform our data analysis process. We use arts-based techniques such as photo elicitation and family tree diagram to encourage sibling participants to share their experiences. As I was reflecting on the interviews that were conducted with siblings, as soon as the photographs were brought up on the screen to share with the sibling participants, as these were virtual interviews, all the sibling participants would immediately start sharing their stories. All the interviews were at least an hour, where the siblings really appreciate it and value that space and time to share their stories and lived experiences. There are limitations with this study. where most of the sibling participants were females who were older than their sibling with a neurodisability. And so the types of roles that were described were often more of the caregiving roles that sibling participants described that they wanted to take on or were already taking on. And we only interviewed the siblings and not all family members. It would have also been interesting to see the perceptions of other family members about the different roles that both siblings and other family members had. And so thinking about the implications of this study, we can think about it from different levels and systems. At the microsystem, at the family level, there can be discussions in the family about future plans and concrete actions about the roles of each family member, including siblings, and these roles can continue to change over time. Our follow-up study, based on the findings of our program of research so to date, is to co-create a toolkit. So specifically, this is the Siblings Training, Empowerment, and Advocacy, or TKIT study, where we hope that this toolkit can be a way to support siblings to start initiating conversations with the family about their roles. So, for example, having guiding and prompting questions for the siblings to begin asking their parents and families around what roles they may start to want to prepare for. At the macro system, at the healthcare provision level, there should be recognition about the roles of siblings as the full family unit in the delivery of healthcare services. During the preparation of transition for youth with a neurodisability, healthcare professionals could have conversations that incorporates the perspectives of all family members. And there can be questions where healthcare professionals can ask the families about the roles that siblings might have. And at the macro system, at the government policy level, there can be more awareness and establishment of policies to recognize the roles that siblings may have to their sibling with a disability. For example, there can be community supports that considers the well-being of caregivers. And while there are existing programs, often it's not clear about who is being defined as the caregiver, and this might also include the siblings. And also thinking about the rights to request accommodations at work and thinking about how siblings may be taking on caregiving roles and their reasoning for asking for accommodations at school and at work to care for these responsibilities and roles within the family. I'll pass over to Hanae to wrap us up with the key messages.
Thank you, Linda. Do you mind just popping them all up on the screen if that's okay?
Yep.
So for key messages, I think, we really wanted to highlight this idea of having a lifespan approach to sibling research and sibling advocacy because it's so needed for care and supporting the siblings. And it's necessary to invest in siblings as a way to invest in the whole family. We want to emphasize the importance of recognizing that family roles and dynamics can change over time across the lifespan and having ongoing conversations, especially during those critical developmental transitions, both for the sibling as well as the sibling with the neurodisability. And that healthcare professionals can ask about other members of the family in those existent appointments that already exist. We also want to emphasize the importance to consider the accessibility of existent resources for siblings within the healthcare system and for lay people as well.
Thank you so much, Hanae. And that wraps us up with the key messages. We're happy to take any questions. And we also have some guiding questions to lead us into our facilitated discussion that we can also put in the chat. But I see there's also other questions in the chat as well. So I'll stop sharing my screen now.